don't just think that your video that you put up on YouTube is going to get seen. You have to put just as much effort into your title and your thumbnail.
That's good.
That's where people will see your video.
Hey everybody, thanks for checking out Be Original with Isley Creative,
where we take a behind-the-scenes look at the world of effective marketing.
Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Be Original podcast. My name is OJ.
And I'm Christian.
And today we are joined by a very, very good friend, longtime friend. He is a YouTube sensation. He's grown his subscribers to 50,000, and it's continuing to grow pretty rapidly. He's got a pretty amazing story about his start and to where he's at today on YouTube. I'm really excited to have my friend Dan Becker with us today.
Yeah.
Dan,
I feel like it should be like a radio show where there's like an applause button.
Yeah.
Every time you intro somebody, they just hear.
Dan, you're here, bro.
I'm here. We made it.
Finally.
We did it. We finally did it.
I got locked out. I mean,
these guys didn't want you
they
to come in
literally
today.
locked the door on me.
That's OJ's job.
That's my job.
Unlock
I
the
forgot
door,
I was
and he was
Sorry.
late. So
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like we have a ton to talk about today because YouTube is such a cool platform to grow an audience on. So we'll get to that. But I guess the first thing I want to do is, how about you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you're at today?
I started a YouTube channel in November of 2018. I got frustrated. I couldn't find a topic online. So for those that don't know, my YouTube channel is all about the outdoors. Anyway, but I was frustrated. I couldn't find something that I wanted to do on YouTube. So I figured it out and I made a video and I put it online and that was literally how it started.
That's awesome.
that's awesome.
Now, so when you first started, it's interesting because people always talk about, and I hear it a lot too, is, you find something that you love and you just do what you can to try and make money doing it, right?
Right.
And this is like you're like the poster child of that process. Yeah. And it's interesting because of how vast the internet is right now. Like even in a year and a half ago, 2 years ago-ish, you were looking for something that seems to be so simple. Like, why wouldn't you be able to find something good online?
Right.
But you still found something that you're passionate about,
right,
that people weren't putting out a ton of information about. Right. And you're like, I'm going to fill this gap.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of people out there doing what I was doing. Yeah. But nobody was able to do this one specific thing. But I didn't know it. Like, I just took a chance, essentially.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what experience do you have in making videos for YouTube up until that point?
I literally have zero experience. So I went out to Costco weeks before and bought a camera, like a DSLR camera. I bought a Canon 80D at Costco just to take pictures of my family. And I was like, oh, this will work. Let's try this. So started filming with it. And I learned everything from YouTube. Yeah. Like, I literally was like searching videos on how to run a camera.
YouTube certified.
Yeah, you totally YouTube certified, 100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a testament that, we talked about this on another podcast. We had a guest in here that was, she was diagnosed with MS, and like, she's just an all around badass, and there's no excuse. Like, with the advent of YouTube now, there's no excuse why you can't sit down and learn how to do something like this. Yeah. You know, and I think that's amazing.
I think YouTube people think it's oversaturated. It is so undertapped. Like, it is a lucrative resource that people have no idea what the potential is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So you've got Google that owns YouTube. Google's the largest search engine in the world. YouTube's the second largest search engine in the world. Wow. And you've got like 25 million channels or something on YouTube, but most of them are just, people that have a Gmail account or whatever. So it's automatically creates a channel. And people just think that it's oversaturated. And I think if people would get it past the camera, like they're afraid of the camera and talking to a camera, I think that would make, they don't realize the potential, the resource that's there.
So we talk a lot about this, and this has kind of been the ongoing theme through this season is the human to human connection that we're making. And I feel like your audience specifically is very, very specific to what you're doing. Mm-hmm. How do you continually engage that audience while still maintaining and growing at the same time? Like what kinds of things are you doing to make sure that is the case?
Man, that's a really good question. So listening to the audience is probably the most important. So obviously if you are on YouTube at all, you know that you can interact with the YouTuber. And so I've given the audience means to connect with me, to tell me and give me feedback, and that's been really helpful to try to do that. But then also keeping an eye on my niche. So from like a 30,000 foot view, but I check out what's going on in the other realms of my niche on YouTube to try to figure out, how to better connect with people. But it's a game. It really is, because you don't know what people really want to see until after you've created it and you put it out and you're like, okay, that did well, or this didn't do well. And then you just adjust. And then YouTube in itself, this is kind of diving a little bit deep maybe, but YouTube has its whole analytics available for every YouTuber, and you can dive super deep into figuring out exactly what people want to see from you.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a moving target.
Yeah, totally.
It's like people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a relationship.
Yeah.
That's what it boils down to when you talk about human connection. It's just like having a friendship or a dating relationship or a marriage, even, where it's constantly changing, because people are constantly changing, people are constantly evolving. Especially in a specific niche, you have the same people that are essentially getting older, and then they're changing, and then you have younger people coming in that are in that niche but maybe interested in different parts of it. And
So niching down on YouTube is super important too, because the more you can focus down within a niche. So like the outdoor industry is so huge. You've got travel to what I do is essentially backcountry backpacking, and then you've got camping, RV. All this stuff is so huge, but if you can niche down to reach a target audience, you think that your audience is going to be small, but it's much bigger than what you realize, because there's like I heard the other day that there's like groups out there for like knitting, like serious knitting social clubs. Like, are you kidding me? I had no idea. But that's huge, right?
Yeah.
But you'd never think it'd be big, but the niches.
Now we know what kind of YouTube channel Christian needs to start.
Perfect.
Christian needs to start a knitting YouTube channel.
I've never done it in my life, but maybe it'll make me famous.
YouTube certified.
Yeah, I'll watch a bunch of knitting videos. Learn.
That's awesome. I want to kind of put things into perspective for people, because I think I think your story specifically is very interesting in that sense that. So let's talk real quick. So you got started in when?
November 2018.
Okay. So November 2018, you had 0 subscribers, essentially?
Yeah, 0.
Okay. How fast did you grow?
By YouTube standards, pretty fast. It took me maybe a month. I had maybe 100 subscribers. Within 6 months, I had 10,000 subscribers, and then it just spiraled because, you just realize what you're putting out for content that appeals to people, and you keep making more of it.
Yeah.
So like in other words, you could take, let's say your topic is you're talking about this microphone, and it did well on YouTube. Well, guess what? I'm going to talk about this microphone from 10 more different angles, because hopefully that's going to do well. So you try to feed the beast of YouTube to give it what it wants.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do you find it hard still to develop and come up with content pieces, like what you're going to talk about?
Yeah. So, how many times can I review a backpack, right? But there's a million different ideas that come as you grow and you hear from people, you start to get ideas and topics. Now I have a running list of probably 10 videos that I'm ready to shoot now, just because they're constantly, I'm thinking about it all the time, because I went full-time YouTube, and so that's kind of like all I think about now.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like it has a lot to do with just kind of where our cultures come to with having such access. I feel like the majority of people don't want to take the time to figure things out, because they just they could just Google it or find it on YouTube, or they don't, and they ask somebody that they know. And like I get texts all the time, hey, how do you do this? I'm like, Google it.
Yeah,
You know,
right.
like, because I spent the time learning it,
Yeah.
and I don't have the time to teach you.
Yeah.
But the reality is that if somebody like you know, any of us took the time to teach something that we took the time to figure out, there's probably a pretty large audience out there that's interested in it.
For sure.
And I guess you don't think about that when you're just a constant troubleshooter in the first place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So that I feel like there's an element of success in having to do your own research and learn things and
sure.
learn how to do things and
Yeah.
how to put things together. Like me and soldering. I'm terrible at soldering, and I don't spend the time to learn. And I always ask Oates, hey, I got a cable that's broken. Can I come over? And we end up soldering at midnight, and well, he ends up soldering at midnight. And I watch and I try to learn, but my brain doesn't retain it.
Yeah.
I learned enough today. But, you know, if I wanted to, I guarantee you there's YouTube videos out there
for sure.
that I could learn really well how to
Yep.
solder really well, you
Yep.
know. But, yeah, it's just not my thing.
What? Okay, you said something interesting, and I really would love people to understand what you meant by YouTube full time. So, some backstory.
Okay.
You owned and operated an insurance agency.
Yep. Still do.
Still do.
Yeah. But anyway. Yep.
Well, hopefully you don't go too far because you have our insurance.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, so you were doing that up until when?
Yeah. January 1st is when I said going 100% YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't talk about this before, so don't feel pressured to give detailed information. But
okay.
He always does this.
but I'm just curious. Like I mean, for me too, because I've always been interested. Like, how does a YouTuber do this for a living?
How do they make money?
Yeah, like
You're the second person to ask me that today, and it is 10:30 in the morning.
so you
I'm
get
not
that
kidding.
you get that
All the
question a
time.
lot.
All the time, literally. I just had this conversation
Okay, so
on my way here, actually.
so we don't have to give dollar
No,
amounts.
dude, let's do it.
Let's
We got this.
Let's do some. I want to put it into perspective for people, because I think the misconception is that when you're on YouTube, YouTube is paying you all of this money to be famous, and I don't think that that's the case.
No.
So let's break it down. What does that actually look like for you on a regular basis?
Okay, so I'm learning, and I'm definitely no expert in this area at all, but I could just tell you that YouTube in itself, if you need to look at YouTube, if anybody's wanting to start a YouTube channel, as a platform for what you eventually want. If you're looking to make money, it just needs to be your means of getting your word out. So YouTube pays based on what they call monetization, which is essentially they're just paying ad revenue between you and the person who supplied the ad. You're splitting it with YouTube essentially. And so it's very small. It's not a ton of money at all. I mean, you have to have some significant views in order to get like real dollars from YouTube. So you can't depend on it. So what you can do though is you can create affiliate programs with, say, Amazon has a really good program, or whoever. Like pretty much any company out there has affiliate programs. People just don't know it. So you become an affiliate of their business. In other words, you talk about a product. You say, hey, if you like what I talked about, you can click on my affiliate link. Doesn't cost you any money, but I make a small percentage because I brought you to their store essentially. So there's one way to make money. And then as soon as you start talking about stuff, whatever your niche is, those companies are going to reach out to you like crazy. So the outdoor industry came to my door like incredible. Like if I have a fourth bedroom in my house that I almost can't even walk in. It's literally just full of crap. I mean, essentially just junk. A lot of it's junk, a lot of it's good, but it's just full of stuff. So people want me to review their products or whatever. So, and then if you develop a presence where you can start asking for money, you can say, hey, look, I'll talk about your whatever it is, but it costs me a lot of money to do this. And if you want me to do this honestly, send it out to me. I'll look at it for a while. I'll try it out. And if it works out, then you're going to pay me to make a video on it, And if it's something I don't like, I just won't talk about it. I won't. If it's a product that I think stinks, I just won't have it on my channel because I don't want to compromise my value. But there's all different ways to make dollars come in. And then the other way that people really make money, because YouTube essentially owns their audience. You don't own their audience. So like if YouTube disappeared tomorrow, all your subscribers are gone. Like your business is gone. So you have to own your audience to a degree. So you could essentially create a website. You could post, talk about your website through there. You could sell products through your website. You could do digital downloads. You guys are into cameras and that kind of stuff. I mean, if you did like your own LUTs or whatever, you could download LUTs. There's a million different ways to earn revenue from YouTube. And that's how the people who are doing it full time are doing it. They're not doing it off of the ad revenue.
Right. Right.
So. Well, I think obviously that helps. It definitely helps me understand how this all works.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think from our perspective in the marketing world, YouTube is useful and people talk about it, but it's not a focus as far as running ads on YouTube because the returns haven't been as high as what Facebook was for a while and, other avenues. So it always becomes like, yeah, we could run some banner ads on YouTube or whatever, and that just kind of like the spend is very small, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But when you talk about it on the flip side of the influencer market and, being an influencer, that's where I think YouTube is super powerful.
Oh, huge.
Huge. And like you talked about brands having affiliate programs and, paying YouTubers to review products, like that's where it comes into play big time versus the normal marketing strategy that we would talk with companies about where it's, running banner ads or whatever it is.
How do we can you get Tesla to sponsor and then give away a Tesla? Like there's all those guys on YouTube that give away Teslas and stuff.
It's crazy. Like you'll get the weirdest companies reaching out to you.
All right, so give us one of the weirdest ones that you've ever gotten.
I mean, okay, so I've got a company called Rad Power that just reached out to me. They want me to review their electric bikes. So I was like, okay, how does that happen? And then I'm like, oh, I'm going to do a bike packing trip.
There you go.
Like, I'm going to just go ride 30 miles to a campsite and then go ride another 30 miles to a campsite. Dude, I can do this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's, and then, like if it's a really weird product,
sure.
Honestly, I mean, you just throw them a huge number and they go away. You're just like, I'll do it for 20 grand. And they're like, oh, I don't think I could do that.
Yeah. That's funny.
All right. Now, it's interesting, too. I wanted to talk a little bit about your following, your subscribers on YouTube. It's funny because I've been watching a lot of you, and it's interesting that
You're a lucky guy.
people have some very strong feelings. How do you manage to work around some of these ridiculous? I mean, there are let's just call them some of them what they are, like trolls that are just out there to piss on your parade for no apparent reason whatsoever.
The main trolls are usually they're other YouTubers who didn't do well. Or have been doing it for a long time and they're just upset that they weren't able to do what you're doing.
Yeah.
So you just kind of blow that off. It definitely gets to you after a while. It's wearing, so you gotta take it with a grain of salt. But I kind of have a rule of thumb now where if I put out a video, I'll read the comments for the first hour. And then I'm done because after that first hour, that's when the trolls come, and I just can't manage it. Like I put out a video last week; it's got like almost 600 comments on it, so I can't. There's no way I can respond to 600 comments. You know what I mean? It's like you just can't do it.
That makes sense.
Do you ever reach out to those people and
No way.
You don't poke them at all?
I did originally, and sometimes somebody will say something so stupid. And I'm just like, I'll just be like, I'll just say something quick and then I'm done. But the rule is don't feed the trolls.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You just don't feed them and they'll go away. Eventually.
Nathan, are you listening?
Yeah. I love it.
One of the guys that works for us he gets into lots of social media arguments.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. So funny. He's like prone to it, attracts them. Oh, die laughing. I just saw one the other day.
Yeah,
so.
I did too. I was like, oh my Lord. What have you over the last year and a half or 2 years, whatever it is, what's been some of the biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome on building your channel?
Man, that's a great question. So my learning curve had to be huge because I had to not only learn how to just do YouTube in general, but then how to operate a camera in general. Like I didn't know what ISO was. I didn't know what aperture was. I didn't know what shutter speed. I mean, I knew nothing. I didn't know what lenses did. up until like 12 months ago. I literally had to learn. So that was a huge hurdle for me. And then also just managing my daily business that I had for so long with YouTube at the same time. It was just, it's an incredible amount of work. So like a 10-minute video with somebody with my skill set, which is not a lot on videoing and that kind of thing. I mean, it'll take me easily from start to finish, probably 15 to 20 hours. Because I'm creating a thumbnail. I'm trying to think of titles. I'm trying to think of concepts. I'm setting up. I'm my own cameraman.
Sure.
You know, it's not, and I'm just not good at it. And my editing is super slow.
There's a lot of,
you know.
Sure.
So, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that brings up a good point. I mean, I think the assumption is that all of these YouTube people, these YouTube famous people, are, you know, have crews like what we provide. You know, they have these crews of people that are helping them do and build all this stuff. And I'm sure there's some of them out there that do have that. But from what I've seen, there's a good amount of you guys that are literally just lone trailblazers.
One man show.
I think I'm unique in that
That was good, right?
You don't need, you
The
don't.
trailblazer thing. Sorry, that was really
clever.
good.
It was clever.
That was witty.
I picked it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's how it goes. It just trails off into something, and then you sit here feeling like I was trying to say something
Yeah.
important.
I
I'm
had
sorry.
something really important to say. Now it's gone. Thank you.
Sorry.
No, I really don't know what to say.
One man show we were
Yeah.
talking about.
You know, one man show, a trailblazer.
Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, no, but you don't need like the misconception is that you need really good equipment. You need lights. You need cameras that are. I mean, there's guys that have gotten 100,000 subscribers off of like an old iPhone. You know, so it's just engaging your audience, giving them good content, and keeping them through the video long enough to where YouTube promotes it for advertisers.
Yeah.
Is essentially what it is.
We had a conversation. Excuse me. We had a conversation with another guest, and we talked about this whole influencer marketing approach. And one of the interesting things is that these micro influencers that are now being tapped into, and I think you would kind of fit into that area where now, because you have such a strong base of subscribers, followers, whatever, a lot of the big brands are using you because they want to ultimately they're trying to build their audience, but they're using you because they trust that you're delivering their product to your audience and you're an advocate or an ambassador for their brand.
Right.
It's just an interesting dynamic because now all of a sudden, you know, these big corporations who are used to spending, you know, let's say hundreds of thousands of dollars on a yearly basis on marketing, now they're tapping into these little pods or groups or cells of people that, you know, Dan Becker on the Dan Becker channel, and they're using that to further their own purpose.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's really awesome that they've given the opportunity for guys like you and guys like us that we can help our following, but we're giving them the hope is that we're giving them something of value, right?
Yeah.
The product is of value, or the service that we're promoting is of value. But I'm sure through your time, you've seen that kind of evolve. When you first started, you probably got reached out by a lot of lesser known companies.
Oh, for sure.
And now you're getting into a position where there's some bigger names or bigger companies or organizations that are coming after you. What does that look like from your perspective?
Yeah.
From these bigger brands that are trying to tap into your...
Yeah. So it's kind of like it's a really interesting world, because when you start a channel and your first company reaches out to you, it's usually some Chinese company that you've never heard of. Like,
yeah.
And they've always got an American name, like my name is Bob Choi or something like that, right? Anyway, so they'll reach out. They'll reach out, and they'll send you some product or whatever, and you think it's really cool, and you'll do the review for free for content.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. And then you don't know at what point you should start getting compensated for the content and for the video. And so a lot of these businesses take advantage of YouTubers, and so they'll send them expensive gear. They'll send them, I don't know, a really expensive, whatever it is, say it's $1,000 item, they'll send it to them. Now that's a tax write-off to the company, right? So the company's just, there's, huge markups on it. Doesn't cost them a lot of money to send it to you. But as the influencer, you're like, wow, I got this really expensive thing. And you're doing the review for free. And then all of a sudden you've got these bigger companies that are trying to do the same thing. So like, here's a great example. Casio reached out to me to review a watch through a marketing agency, and they were going to pay me to do it. Well, at the last second, they pulled out of all the marketing agencies and said, we're not going to do it. But then, strangely enough, like 3 weeks later, I get an email from Casio directly saying, hey, would you review our watch? We're just going to send it to you for free. And I'm like, dude, do you guys not communicate? Because you just told me over here you were going to pay me. Now this guy's telling me he just wants to send me a watch. Like, what's going on? So I think that the YouTubers are devaluing themselves. So they're doing stuff for free when they really should be asking for money. And so the value overall for the influencer out there is lower because of it.
That makes sense. Paul was saying something similar, but on the creative side, not necessarily the influencer side, but how people that are doing this as like a hobby, whether it's creative or influencing on a certain platform, they're kind of devaluing the whole market because they're doing things for free.
Yeah.
And they're taking whatever, piece of gear for exchange for something that they have influence over, which is interesting. It makes sense.
Yeah, I guess.
Because I don't think people recognize that they're doing that. They're just like, oh, I got this for free.
Totally.
And they're like, like, this is cool. I'm going to review it because I got it free.
And there's value to the viewer, I think, in that, because the viewer feels like, okay, I wasn't sold something.
Yeah.
But I think there's a fine line that at some point you have to get compensated for your work. Because you can't, like, there's no way anybody could do full-time YouTube and not get compensated for that. And if they're saying they're doing that, the chances are they're really not.
What happens if you you sign a deal to review something or whatever and you don't like the product?
Yeah, so my system is a little bit different. So I tell every company, if you need to send me the product first, I'll look at it, and then I'll let you know if I'm going to sign your deal, essentially.
Okay.
So that's how I do it. But I haven't been put in a situation yet where I've gotten something that's been so terrible that, or instead of doing my personal feelings about it, I'll just talk about, here's what it is. This is what A does. This is what B does. This is what C does.
Yeah.
If you want to buy it, buy it.
Yep.
I won't really share my opinion on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that you don't have a lot of negative.
Yeah, right. So people don't think I sold them out. Like, this is just basically an overview of the product. Here's what it is. But
That makes sense. It makes sense to me. Do you ever get a product and then respond to the company, hey, I don't want to do this, but here's why? Like, this product, in my opinion, could use this, that, or whatever.
I haven't gotten anything yet where I've had that experience, but there's definitely been, like, look, this just isn't going to work.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I can't do this.
I can't do this. I don't know what.
I just wonder from a company, like a company's or a brand's perspective, when they're trying new products or they're trying to push new products, if they value that.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, because I have a company now that's pushing me like crazy to review their product, and I don't want to review their product, so I keep throwing them like ridiculous numbers, but they keep sending me free product, and all they want me to do is tell them what I think of the product. Well, I would love to be able to do that, but in order for me to do that, I have to use it, and that takes time. So now you're taking my time.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
But they do appreciate that because they want the feedback from somebody like me who does a lot of outdoor gear type products, so I can tell them the differences between stuff. So I mean, for them it's beneficial. For me, it's just, how does that benefit me? It doesn't.
Yeah, true.
Do you wake up in the morning and think about how surreal this is that you get to do this for a living?
Yeah, so yes, totally. And what's even weirder is like when my kid will come home and be like, yeah, 3 kids in my class told me they watched you on YouTube. And I'm like, dude, they watched some old guy talk about a backpack on YouTube. Like, what kind of friends are you hanging out with, dude?
Well, it's funny because my kids watch stuff like that all the time. The unboxing of toys and how to make slime.
Those people are making crazy money.
Well, yeah, it's interesting because you see, I don't understand it. Like I've walked into the living room and they're watching YouTube on the TV, and it's like this woman playing with dolls, like she's talking and playing with dolls, and I'm like, this this is unreal.
Well, YouTube just hit those people big time now because there's advertising rules between YouTube and children where they
Sure.
they took a lot of their ad revenue away, so a lot of them went out of business.
Oh wow,
Interesting.
wow. Well, I mean, I feel like, well, here's a good question for you. What, in your opinion, is this world dying or growing?
Growing, like exponentially growing. Like people think YouTube is going to have some competitor come out and Amazon's going to come out with some video service. Like you have no idea how big and how complex YouTube is. It's going to be a long time before somebody comes. Like there's been people that have tried, like didn't like, I thought maybe Instagram or somebody came out with something, or Twitch or somebody, or TikTok now is trying to do. I mean, there's a lot of people that are trying to compete with YouTube, but like, it's.
I don't think it's going to happen. It's the same thing as Google. Like,
totally.
Do people use Yahoo anymore?
No. It's
Or
a monopoly.
Bing? What is it? Bing was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Google just figured it out.
Right.
They made it easy for everybody, and that's the term. Instead of like go to a search engine, it's go Google that.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
what I mean, it doesn't
Or YouTube
matter.
it.
Yeah, or YouTube
Yeah.
it, which is all the same, right?
Yep.
So I think there's just a certain aspect of it that, you know, maybe 50 years down the road, there's going to be a new one.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen in the next 10 years?
Yeah.
And I wonder if, you know, from a YouTube creator's perspective, if sometimes it's just intimidating and that's why it hasn't been as tapped as it should be. You know, like what we talk about, and we post stuff on our YouTube, but we've never really tried to build a channel. You know what I mean? Because we're content creators. It just hasn't struck until recently. Like, hey, we should capitalize on this a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of it too, though, to piggyback off that is we actually have an operating business that runs like we're trying to create content, absolutely, but at the same time, we're also creating content regularly for clients.
Yes.
And it's tough.
Yeah, but and when you get into it, you know, and we learn as much about each channel as we can to better service our clients. So what kind of content are people watching, this and that. But rarely have we been asked to make YouTube videos for a client. And I think getting into that channel, it just seems like a daunting thing, right? Like that platform, there's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of detail. There's a lot of tagging details. There's a lot of, you know, how you shoot your videos and, you know, the format.
Yeah. So YouTube is extremely competitive with especially within a niche, and it's kind of you just don't know. Like, okay, my example would be, I am just an average dude. I've never done like huge expeditions. I've never like climbed Mount Everest, but here I am reviewing outdoor gear and people listen to me. But my niche is, I'm just the average Joe family guy. This is what I use as the average Joe family guy. So the average Joe person is who is watching my channel.
Yeah.
But the outdoor industry didn't know, at least from my perspective, that market was there. And so all those people gravitated to me when I came on board.
Yeah.
And I just I don't want to say got lucky, but I guess I did in a way where, so my point is so the people that are thinking about starting a channel or thinking about, they're intimidated by the process because well, you know, I'm really not that good at this. Well, the person who is good at it isn't doing the video, so you may as well be the guy doing the video.
Yeah.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
That's
It's
good.
like,
that's good.
just do it.
Yeah, and don't get inside your head about it. I
Right.
think part of what your the attraction that you have as a YouTuber is that you are figuring it out and that you're not looking at the other guys and doing the same thing as everybody else to
Right.
get out there. There's like an authenticity to what you're doing, saying like, look, I have a passion for this. This is what I do outside of my business, and I'm going to start talking about it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So just because a guy that hikes Mount Everest uses this backpack doesn't mean you need it, right?
Yep, totally.
Then you're bringing that reality. And I think across the board in every industry, we get into our heads. I mean, in our industry, the big thing is the brand of camera, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's using Red and
Yeah.
Ari and all these big brands.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here going, well, Blackmagic came out with incredible cameras and they look incredible, and I don't need a $50,000 camera to service the clients that we're working with. Of course I want it. It looks amazing. Like as a filmmaker, I'm like, oh, I would love that. But the reality is most people don't need that. Like most guys that are freelancers don't need to get in debt buying $50,000 cameras. You know, it's the same thing. I think it's just knowing that audience. Like people on our level could understand that.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
why a $2,500 camera is probably better for somebody than a $50,000 camera.
Yeah, for
You know,
sure.
It's gonna take you a while to pay that off.
And this is the argument that we've always had with clients is, I would probably bet that the majority of the people that are interested in your product or service are less interested in the brand of camera or the quality difference between a red or a black Magic when it comes to a final product.
Sure.
And that's where it's like, if that's the difference, then I'd rather save $50,000.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Why do you think Amazon's gotten as big as it has? Because you can find things that work and do the job and are reliable that aren't, they're a tenth of the cost.
Right.
And, not that your channel focuses on cost, but the reality is you're, as a regular guy, not going to buy the most expensive hiking gear that's out there, or maybe parts of it because you feel like it's worth it. But
the catch-20, I guess the other flip side of that is that I have big brands wanting to send me expensive stuff.
Yeah.
And that's tempting because I don't want to separate myself so far from the viewer because I can get this really expensive piece of gear.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's definitely a fine line. But then there's also the fine line of, testing the market. What if I do review this piece of expensive gear? What audience is going to...
I feel like because I wonder if that's like you have to be conscious of that, right? Like you have to be conscious that you're not reviewing $1,000 backpack because your subscriber base isn't going to spend $1,000 on a backpack.
Well, there's another side to that though. Is it worth it? So if you show it and you review it, you're essentially showing them, is it worth buying this?
Yeah.
Like you want to be true to the people that follow you and watch you, but also true to the brand that sent that to you. So obviously this thing is amazing, right?
Yeah.
I probably won't use this part of it, but it's amazing. So it's balance. I'm sure it's balancing that where you're not ousting the company and actually taking sales away from them, potential sales, but also explaining that maybe you don't need the $1,000 backpack.
Right. Oh, totally, for sure.
That's got to be a tough balance.
It is. I mean, but that's where I'll still review things that somebody didn't send me. I review, just stuff that I bought myself because I still have a ton of gear that I bought myself.
Yeah. So you mentioned something just a minute ago about knowing your audience. That obviously is the key part of this. So the one of the key takeaways from this conversation is, being in a position that you're in and understanding who your audience is plays into every other aspect of your business because of who your audience is.
For sure.
How do you figure out what that audience is?
Like who is my audience?
Yeah, how do you determine that from a guy like you that started a YouTube channel? Like, is it really like, do you go into it with the mentality of I'm an average Joe, I'm going to talk to average Joe people?
No. So that I didn't know who. So like when I first started the channel, I was so intimidated by the whole outdoor industry that I felt like I just couldn't let anybody know that I was the average guy. I was just sharing everything I could think of that was like top knowledge, in order to just prove myself as an outdoor person. And then I realized like, okay, people can see through that, but the average Joe is starting to watch, and that through your analytics. So you can dive super deep into YouTube because YouTube provides resources to the YouTuber that is incredibly helpful, and they do it because they want you to be better as a creator so that they make more money. And so you can figure out who your audience is, and you really figure out who your audience is when you listen to them and you read what they're telling you, or there's ways to find out what your audience is. That's how you figure it out.
That's good. That's awesome. So one of the things that we do to wrap all of these up is we kind of put you on the spot.
Oh, dear Jesus.
So it'd be really awesome. 1 to 2 takeaways from this conversation that we had, practical things that people that are trying to start their YouTube channel, what are some of the things that they need or can do immediately after this?
Okay. Don't think you've got to buy some expensive cell phone or camera. You can use your phone, 100%. And then the other takeaway would be, don't just think that your video that you put up on YouTube is going to get seen. You have to put just as much effort into your title and your thumbnail.
That's good.
That's where people will see your video.
Nice.
So did you write that down, Josh? Okay, perfect. Well, I love it. I think it's awesome. I think what you've managed to do in the seemingly very short period of time has been pretty amazing. And I think that speaks to the fact that for anybody else that's out there watching, like, it doesn't matter what your opinion is of who you are. There are people out there that want to learn and are hungry to learn. And there are a plethora of different people out there that you don't even understand why they even like watching you, but they love watching you. So get out there, do something, create, and there's going to be somebody out there that's going to touch. And listen, the reality is, let's call it what it is. Not everybody is going to turn into a YouTube star. Right. Not everybody's going to be able to make a ton of money on YouTube. That's not necessarily the thing. But if you're out there and you're creating regularly, there's going to be people that you're going to be able to impact on a regular basis in whatever area of expertise you have. And so that's the point, is get out there, get it done, and somebody will find you. You have to do your part. You said, you have to do it. You have to go out there. You have to do it. You have to spend time on thumbnails and keywords and all of these other things. But it's definitely out there, and it definitely can be accomplished.
And don't be discouraged when nobody watches your first video, because nobody's going to watch your first video.
Absolutely.
You just got to keep putting out content.
I love that. Sure. Consistency.
Yeah,
awesome.
For sure.
Consistency. All right. Well, everybody, thanks so much, Dan, for coming and hanging out with us. Everybody else, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, do all that stuff. Check us out on all platforms. Thank you. We love you. Peace. Thanks again for checking out Be Original with Isley Creative.
We hope that this helps you put a little more you in your marketing.
Catch a new episode every week right here on the Be Original podcast.